The German Shepherd vanished without a trace, but when found, he guarded something shocking. The Walters family home was eerily silent as Sarah stared at the empty dog bed in the corner of the living room. Max's favorite chew toy lay untouched beside it, collecting dust after 3 weeks of absence. The German Shepherd had vanished without a trace on a crisp autumn morning, leaving behind a family drowning in questions and a community divided by suspicion. "Any news?" Michael, Sarah's husband, asked as he entered the room. His voice carried the weight of sleepless nights and endless searches through the dense woods surrounding their small town of Pine Grove. Sarah shook her head, her fingers absently scrolling through social media posts about lost pets. "Nothing. It's like he just disappeared into thin air." The silence between them felt tangible, filled with unspoken fears. Max wasn't just a pet. He was family. The gentle giant had been by their side for 6 years, ever since they'd rescued him from the shelter as a skittish 2-year-old with trust issues. He'd watched over their daughter Emma as she grew from a toddler to an 8-year-old, becoming her guardian, playmate, and confidant all in one. "Dad? Mom?" Emma's small voice broke the silence as she appeared in the doorway, clutching a framed photo of herself with Max. "Is Max ever coming home?" Michael knelt down, pulling his daughter into a tight embrace. "We're doing everything we can to find him, sweetheart." Sarah joined the hug, forcing a smile she didn't feel. "Remember what Officer Bryant said? German Shepherds are smart. Max is probably just on an adventure." But as Emma retreated to her room, the facade crumbled. They both knew the statistics. 3 weeks was a long time for a dog to be missing, especially one as loyal as Max, who had never wandered far from home before. "The flyers aren't working," Michael said, his voice dropping to a whisper. "And the community search parties are getting smaller each time." Sarah nodded, her eyes drifting to the window. Outside, Pine Grove continued its peaceful existence, the autumn leaves creating a picturesque scene that felt mockingly at odds with their private turmoil. "I know." What they didn't say aloud was that the town's initial sympathy had begun morphing into something uglier. Whispers started after the first week. Rumors, questions. Had they mistreated the dog? Was there more to the story? Why would a well-trained German Shepherd suddenly run away? The worst came from their neighbor, Richard Grayson, who owned the butcher shop in town and had never approved of the beast, as he called Max, living so close to his property. "Dogs like that have wild instincts," he'd told anyone who would listen. "Probably went feral. Might be best if nobody finds it." The doorbell rang, interrupting Sarah's thoughts. She opened the door to find Officer Bryant, his expression unreadable beneath his department-issued cap. "Mrs. Walters," he nodded. "May I come in?" Sarah's heart skipped a beat. In a small town like Pine Grove, a personal visit from the police could mean anything. "Please tell me you've found him," Michael said, joining them in the entryway. Officer Bryant removed his cap, revealing thinning gray hair. "Not exactly, but we might have a lead." They moved to the kitchen table where Bryant pulled out a small notebook. A hiker reported seeing a German Shepherd matching Max's description near the old Willoughby property, about 5 miles into the forest. "The abandoned farm?" Sarah asked, hope flickering to life despite her attempts to stay realistic. They'd searched that area twice already. "That's right. But here's where it gets strange. The hiker says the dog wasn't alone. Appeared to be with someone living out there." Michael frowned. "That's impossible. That place has been empty for years. After old man Willoughby died, the property went to the bank." "That's what everyone thought," Bryant agreed. "But there have been other reports recently. Smoke from the chimney, lights at night." "So someone's squatting," Sarah concluded. "And they have Max?" "Or a dog that looks like him," Bryant cautioned. "I'm going to check it out tomorrow morning. I'd prefer if you let me handle this officially, but "We're coming with you," Michael interrupted, his tone leaving no room for argument. Bryant sighed. "I figured you'd say that. I'll pick you up at 7. After he left, Sarah and Michael stood in the kitchen, the first real hope in weeks tempered by a new worry. "Why would someone take Max?" Sarah whispered. "And why hide out there?" Michael shook his head. "I don't know. But if someone has him..." The unfinished sentence hung between them, carrying all the possibilities they didn't want to voice. That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. She slipped out of bed, careful not to wake Michael, and made her way to Emma's room. The little girl was sleeping peacefully, her arms wrapped around the stuffed German shepherd they'd bought her when the real one went missing. Sarah continued to Max's favorite spot by the living room window. The moon cast long shadows across the yard where he used to patrol diligently. Max had always been protective, especially of Emma. The thought of him with strangers made Sarah's stomach twist with anxiety. She picked up her phone and opened the photo gallery, scrolling to the last picture she'd taken of Max. In it, he sat proudly in the garden, his intelligent brown eyes alert, his black and tan coat gleaming in the sunlight. His left ear had that distinctive flop that happened when he was particularly relaxed. The scar across his muzzle, a remnant from whatever hardships he'd endured before the shelter, was barely visible. As she studied the photo, Sarah remembered the day Max disappeared. It had been ordinary in every way. She'd let him out in the fenced backyard after breakfast, as she did every morning. When she went to call him in an hour later, the gate was open, and Max was gone. At first, they'd assumed he'd pushed through the gate, which sometimes didn't latch properly. But as days passed with no sign of him despite extensive searches, questions arose. The more Sarah thought about it, the more convinced she became that someone had opened that gate deliberately. Dawn broke with Sarah still at the window, her mind racing with possibilities. By the time Officer Bryant's patrol car pulled up outside, she and Michael were ready, dressed in hiking clothes and fueled by a mixture of hope, fear, and determination. "Emma wanted to come," Michael explained as they climbed into Bryant's car. "My parents are watching her." "Probably best she stays behind," Bryant said, shifting the car into drive. "We don't know what we're walking into." The drive to the edge of the forest was quiet, each lost in their own thoughts. The hiking trail that would lead them to the Willoughby property was overgrown, a testament to how rarely it was used these days. "The property's about 2 miles in," Bryant explained as they started walking. "Used to be a working farm until about 15 years ago. Old Man Willoughby was something of a recluse toward the end." "I remember him," Sarah said. "He used to come into the library where I work, checking out books on organic farming and renewable energy." "Eccentric guy," Bryant nodded, "but harmless. His daughter tried to sell the place after he died, but the location's too remote. Bank foreclosed eventually." As they hiked deeper into the forest, the October air grew colder. The trees stood tall and dense on either side of the trail, their branches creating a canopy that filtered the morning sunlight into dappled patterns on the ground. "So who do you think might be out there?" Michael asked after they'd been walking for about an hour. Bryant shrugged. "Could be anyone. Homeless person looking for shelter, drifter passing through, maybe someone who knew the property was abandoned and decided to make use of it." "And Max?" Sarah pressed. "Why would they keep someone's pet?" "Companionship, maybe. Or protection." Bryant paused, considering his words carefully. "Look, I don't want to get your hopes up too much. There's a chance it's not even your dog." They continued in silence until the trail widened, and suddenly the trees gave way to a clearing. In the center stood the Willoughby farmhouse, a 2-story structure with a wraparound porch and a stone chimney. Despite years of abandonment, it looked surprisingly well maintained. "That's weird," Bryant muttered, slowing his pace. "Last time I was out here, that place was falling apart." Sarah's eyes scanned the property, her heart pounding. The windows were intact. The porch looked recently swept. A stack of firewood was neatly piled against the side of the house, and there, tethered to a post near what must have been a kitchen garden, was a large German Shepherd. "Max!" Sarah gasped, breaking into a run before Bryant could stop her. The dog's head shot up at the sound of her voice, ears perked forward. Even from a distance, Sarah recognized the distinctive flop of his left ear, the scar on his muzzle. But as she got closer, Max didn't bound toward her as she expected. Instead, he stood rigid, his posture alert but uncertain. "Max?" Sarah slowed her approach, confusion washing over her. "It's me, boy." The dog whined softly, his tail giving a hesitant wag. Something was wrong. This wasn't the joyful reunion Sarah had imagined countless times over the past 3 weeks. "Max?" she repeated, extending her hand slowly. The German Shepherd sniffed her fingers, his brown eyes studying her intently. Recognition flickered there, but so did something else. Wariness, as if he was torn between joy and duty. Michael caught up to her, breathing hard. "Is it him?" "Yes," Sarah said without hesitation, "but something's different." Officer Bryant approached more cautiously, his hand resting near his holster. "Careful now. We don't know who's in that house." As if on cue, the farmhouse door creaked open. Sarah tensed, expecting to see some rough-looking squatter emerge. Instead, a small figure appeared on the porch, a boy, no older than 12, with unkempt dark hair and clothes that hung too large on his thin frame. "Get away from him!" the boy shouted, his voice cracking with fear and determination. "He's mine now!" Max's behavior suddenly made sense. The dog looked back and forth between Sarah and the boy, clearly distressed by the confrontation. "That's our dog," Michael called back, his voice firm but measured. "His name is Max. He went missing from our home 3 weeks ago." The boy's face contorted with a mixture of disbelief and panic. "No, you're lying. I found him injured in the woods. Nobody wanted him." Sarah took a step forward, but Max stayed where he was, still tethered to the post. "We've been searching for him every day," she said gently. "We have pictures, records from the vet. He has a microchip." The boy's eyes widened at this last detail, and Sarah could see his confidence wavering, but then his expression hardened again. "You're just saying that. You're trying to trick me." Officer Bryant stepped forward. "Son, I'm with the Pine Grove Police Department. Nobody's trying to trick you. These people really are the dog's owners." "Police?" The boy's face went pale. He glanced back into the house, then to Max, indecision written across his features. "What's your name?" Sarah asked, trying a different approach. A long pause followed. "Ethan," the boy finally said, his voice barely audible. "Ethan, I'm Sarah. This is my husband, Michael. We just want to understand what happened to Max." Ethan descended the porch steps slowly, his movements stiff with caution. He couldn't have been older than 12, but his eyes held the wariness of someone much older. As he approached, Sarah noticed a fading bruise near his temple. "He was hurt," Ethan said when he reached them, keeping a careful distance. "I found him by the creek about 3 weeks ago. His paw was bleeding and he couldn't walk right. I think maybe he got caught in a trap." Sarah felt sick at the thought. "And you brought him here? You've been taking care of him?" Ethan nodded, a flicker of pride breaking through his guardedness. "I cleaned his paw and wrapped it up. I gave him food from my supplies. He got better." Michael knelt down to Max's level, examining him closely. The dog wagged his tail more confidently now, seeming to remember his family. "His paw looks healed," Michael confirmed, looking up at Bryant. "But he was definitely injured." "Ethan," Officer Bryant said, his tone gentler now, "are you out here alone?" The boy's posture immediately tensed again. He took a step back, eyes darting toward the trees as if calculating his chances of escape. "We just want to help," Sarah added quickly. "Both you and Max." Something in her tone must have reached him because Ethan's shoulders slumped slightly. "My mom's supposed to come back for me," he said. "She said to wait here where it's safe. She promised 2 weeks, but it's been longer." The three adults exchanged glances, a silent understanding passing between them. "Is there anyone else we can call?" Bryant asked. "Your father? Grandparents?" Ethan shook his head. "Mom said not to trust anyone, said they'd put me in the system." His voice dropped to a whisper. "But she's never been gone this long before." Sarah felt her heart breaking for this boy who had saved their dog and was now alone in an abandoned farmhouse, waiting for a mother who might not return. "How did you know about this place?" Michael asked. "Mom's friend told us about it. Said no one comes out here anymore." Bryant nodded thoughtfully. "And how have you been surviving? It's getting cold at night." "I know how to make fires," Ethan said, a hint of defensiveness returning. "And there's a garden out back with some vegetables still growing. Max helps me hunt sometimes." His face softened as he looked at the German Shepherd. "He's really smart." "Yes, he is," Sarah agreed, moving slowly toward Max again. This time the dog's tail wagged more enthusiastically. He licked her hand when she reached him and tears sprang to her eyes. Ethan watched this interaction with a mixture of emotions playing across his face. "He really is yours, isn't he?" "Yes," Sarah said gently. "But you saved him, Ethan, and we're so grateful for that." The boy looked down, scuffing his worn sneaker against the dirt. "What happens now? Are you going to take him away?" Before Sarah could respond, Bryant stepped forward. "First things first. Ethan, I need to make some calls to find your mom, and we need to get you somewhere warm and safe." Fear flashed across Ethan's face. "No, I can't leave. What if she comes back and I'm not here? She won't know where to find me." "We can leave a note," Michael suggested, "and we'll keep checking back." Ethan didn't look convinced. His gaze drifted to Max, who was now sitting contentedly as Sarah stroked his fur. "What if," Sarah began, an idea forming, "Ethan comes back with us for now, just until we figure things out?" She looked at Bryant. "Would that be possible?" The officer frowned, clearly weighing his professional obligations against the practical realities of the situation. "Technically, I should contact Child Services immediately." "Please," Ethan pleaded, "don't send me to strangers." Bryant sighed. "Let me make a few calls. There might be a way to handle this temporarily, at least until we locate his mother." He walked a few paces away, pulling out his phone. Sarah approached Ethan while Michael continued checking Max for any other injuries. "You've been very brave," she told the boy, "taking care of yourself and Max all alone out here." Ethan shrugged, but she could see he was pleased by the acknowledgement. "He took care of me too," he said. "Kept me warm at night, and he scared away a coyote once." Sarah smiled. "That sounds like Max. He's always been protective." Ethan's expression grew serious. "If I go with you, will you help me find my mom?" The question carried so much hope and fear that Sarah had to swallow hard before answering. "We'll do everything we can," she promised, "all of us together." Bryant returned, tucking his phone away. "Okay, here's what we're going to do. Ethan, you'll come stay with the Walters for now, as a temporary emergency placement. I've spoken with a judge I know who's authorizing it for 72 hours while we search for your mother. After that, we'll have to reassess." Relief washed over Ethan's face, quickly followed by uncertainty. "What do I need to bring?" "Whatever's important to you," Sarah said. "We can provide everything else." Ethan nodded, then rushed back to the house. While he was gone, Bryant lowered his voice. I've got officers running his mother's name now. Sarah, Michael, are you sure about this, taking in a child you don't know? He saved Max, Michael said simply. We owe him. And he needs help, Sarah added. We can't just leave him here or send him off with strangers. Bryant nodded, though his expression remained concerned. I'll be checking in regularly, and if we find his mother, we understand, Sarah assured him. Ethan emerged from the house carrying a battered backpack and a worn teddy bear that he quickly stuffed inside when he saw them watching. The sight made Sarah's throat tighten. Ready? She asked softly. Ethan took a deep breath and nodded. He walked over to Max and knelt beside him, whispering something in the dog's ear. Max licked the boy's cheek in response. Michael untied the rope from Max's collar, and the German Shepherd immediately pressed against Ethan's side, as if understanding the boy's need for comfort. As they began the hike back through the forest, Max walked between Sarah and Ethan, occasionally looking back at the farmhouse as if to say goodbye to the place where he'd found an unexpected purpose, protecting a lost boy who had saved him in return. Bryant led the way, while Michael brought up the rear. Sarah watched as Ethan walked silently beside Max, one hand resting on the dog's back. The boy who had been alone for so long, and the dog who had found his way home by an unexpected path. The mystery of Max's disappearance was solved, but Sarah knew that another, perhaps more complicated story was just beginning. Who was Ethan's mother? Why had she left him alone? And would she return as she'd promised? Questions without answers swirled in Sarah's mind as they made their way back to Pine Grove, a newly formed and fragile family unit. The Walters home looked different to Sarah as they approached, smaller somehow, yet infinitely more complicated. What had begun as a search for their missing dog had evolved into something none of them could have anticipated. Emma was waiting on the front porch with her grandparents, bouncing on her toes with barely contained excitement. When the car pulled into the driveway, she bolted forward, then froze at the sight of not just Max, but a strange boy exiting the vehicle with him. "Max!" she finally cried, and the German Shepherd's ears perked up. He looked to Ethan first, as if seeking permission, which the boy granted with a small nod. Only then did Max bound toward Emma, nearly knocking her over in his enthusiasm. "He remembers me." Emma laughed as Max covered her face with kisses. Sarah watched the reunion with tears in her eyes, but her attention was divided. Beside her, Ethan stood rigidly, clutching his backpack like a shield. "Emma," Sarah called gently, "there's someone I'd like you to meet." The little girl looked up, her arms still wrapped around Max's neck. Her curious gaze traveled to Ethan, who shifted uncomfortably under the scrutiny. "This is Ethan," Sarah continued. "He found Max when he was hurt and took care of him. He's going to stay with us for a little while." Emma's eyes widened. "You saved Max?" Ethan shrugged, his gaze fixed on the ground. "He was hurt." "Thank you," Emma exclaimed with the pure, unfiltered gratitude that only children can express. She detached herself from Max and approached Ethan. "He's my best friend in the whole world." For the first time since they'd met him, Ethan's face relaxed into something resembling a smile. "He's a really good dog." Officer Bryant, who had followed in his patrol car, approached Michael and Sarah while Emma bombarded Ethan with questions about his time with Max. "I filed the initial reports," he said quietly. "The judge granted emergency temporary custody for 72 hours, but you'll need to check in with family services tomorrow to formalize the arrangement if his mother hasn't been located by then." "Any leads?" Michael asked. Bryant shook his head. "We're running her name through the system. Ethan gave us Lisa Carter, but we haven't found a driver's license or social security number matching that name with a son named Ethan. It's possible she's using an alias." Sarah frowned. "What about the bruise on his face?" "I noticed that too," Bryant admitted. I didn't want to push him too hard on the first meeting, but I'll need to ask more questions. Child Services will also want to conduct their own interview. Sarah nodded, her stomach tight with worry. The more she learned, the more she suspected Ethan's situation was complicated in ways they hadn't yet uncovered. "We'll take good care of him," Michael assured Bryant, "and we'll bring him in for any interviews needed." After Bryant left, Sarah's parents approached, their expressions a mixture of confusion and concern. "Sarah, what's going on?" her father asked. "Who is this boy?" Sarah explained the situation as briefly as possible, watching as her parents' expressions shifted from confusion to compassion. "Poor child," her mother murmured. "Of course you had to bring him home." Her father nodded in agreement, then lowered his voice. "But what happens when his mother returns? Or if she doesn't?" "I don't know," Sarah admitted. "We're just taking this one day at a time." Inside the house, Sarah showed Ethan to the guest room, which would be his for the time being. It was a simple space with a twin bed, dresser, and desk, but Ethan looked at it like it was a luxury suite. "The bathroom is across the hall," Sarah explained, "and Emma's room is next door. Ours is at the end of the hallway if you need anything during the night." Ethan nodded, still clutching his backpack. "Are you hungry?" Sarah asked, realizing they hadn't stopped for food during the trek back. As if in answer, Ethan's stomach growled loudly, causing him to blush. "I'll take that as a yes," Sarah smiled. "I'll make some sandwiches while you get settled. Is there anything you don't eat?" Ethan shook his head. "I'm not picky." Something about the way he said it made Sarah's heart ache. This was a child who had learned not to ask for much. Downstairs, Sarah found Michael explaining the situation to Emma in terms an 8-year-old could understand. "So Ethan doesn't know where his mom is right now, and he needs a safe place to stay while grown-ups try to find her," Michael was saying. "That's why he'll be living with us for a little while." Emma nodded seriously. "Like when Max was lost and needed someone to help him?" Michael smiled at the comparison. "Exactly like that. So we need to make Ethan feel welcome and safe, just like Ethan did for Max." "I can share my toys," Emma offered, "and my books." "Does he like to read?" "I'm not sure, sweetheart. You can ask him." Emma beamed at having a mission. "I'll find the best books." Sarah began preparing sandwiches, her mind racing with all the practicalities they hadn't had time to consider. Ethan would need clothes, toiletries, school supplies if his stay extended. And what about school itself? Would he be allowed to enroll temporarily? Should they try to keep his routine as normal as possible? Ethan appeared in the kitchen doorway, Max faithfully at his side. The dog had apparently appointed himself Ethan's personal guide, showing him around the house that had once been unfamiliar to Max himself. "Can I help?" Ethan asked. "Sure," Sarah said, grateful for the distraction from her spiraling thoughts. "Would you like to set the table? Plates are in that cabinet." As Ethan carefully arranged plates and napkins, Sarah observed him surreptitiously. Despite his shabby clothes and the bruise on his face, there was something inherently orderly about the boy. He placed each item with precision, making adjustments until everything was perfectly aligned. "You've done this before," Sarah commented. Ethan nodded. "Mom works a lot. I usually make dinner." "That's very responsible of you. How old are you, Ethan?" 11, almost 12, he added, as if the distinction was important. Just a year older than Emma, yet with responsibilities far beyond his years. Sarah felt a surge of protectiveness toward this boy who had cared for their dog with such dedication. The meal was a quiet affair, with Ethan answering questions politely, but volunteering little information about himself. Max sat between him and Emma, his head swiveling between them as if monitoring their interaction. "Max really likes you," Emma observed. "He usually doesn't like strangers." "We understand each other," Ethan said simply, slipping a small piece of his sandwich to the dog when he thought no one was looking. After dinner, while Michael helped Emma with her bedtime routine, Sarah showed Ethan how to use the washing machine. "We can wash your clothes tonight," she offered, "and tomorrow we can go shopping for some new ones." Ethan looked down at his worn jeans and faded t-shirt, suddenly self-conscious. "These are fine." "I'm sure they are," Sarah said gently, "but it's always nice to have clean clothes, and maybe a jacket. It's getting colder." Ethan hesitated, then nodded. "Thank you." Later that night, after both children were in bed, Sarah and Michael sat at the kitchen table, speaking in hushed tones. "What if they can't find his mother?" Sarah asked, voicing the question that had been haunting her since they left the farmhouse. Michael reached across the table to take her hand. "Then we'll figure out the next step, together. He's been through so much already, and there's something he's not telling us." "Give him time," Michael advised. "Trust takes a while to build." Sarah nodded, but couldn't shake the feeling that time was a luxury they might not have. The 72-hour emergency placement would pass quickly, and then what? A soft whine interrupted her thoughts. Max stood in the doorway, his ears perked forward, his posture alert. "What is it, boy?" Michael asked. Max whined again, then turned and trotted toward the stairs. Sarah and Michael exchanged a glance before following him. The dog led them to Ethan's room, where he scratched gently at the closed door. Sarah knocked softly. "Ethan, is everything okay?" No response came. Sarah carefully opened the door to find Ethan sitting up in bed, his knees drawn to his chest, his face wet with tears. "Oh, Ethan," Sarah said, her heart breaking for the boy. "I had a bad dream," he whispered, looking embarrassed. "I didn't mean to disturb anyone." "You didn't," Sarah assured him, entering the room with Michael and Max close behind. The German Shepherd immediately jumped onto the bed and pressed himself against Ethan's side. "Would you like to talk about it?" Michael asked, sitting at the edge of the bed. Ethan shook his head, but after a moment said, "I dreamed my mom couldn't find me because I wasn't at the farmhouse." Sarah sat on his other side. "We left a note, remember? With Officer Bryant's number, and we can go back to check tomorrow if you'd like." Ethan nodded, but his expression remained troubled. What if she's in danger? What if that's why she hasn't come back? The question hung in the air, heavy with implications that Sarah wasn't prepared to address in the middle of the night with a frightened child. Instead, she focused on what she could offer: comfort and reassurance. "Whatever is happening with your mom, we're going to help figure it out," she promised. "Officer Bryant and his team are already looking for her." Ethan wiped his face with his sleeve. "You don't understand. We're always careful. We always have a plan. She wouldn't just disappear unless something bad happened." Michael and Sarah exchanged concerned glances over Ethan's head. "Ethan," Michael said gently, "can you tell us more about these plans? It might help us find your mom." The boy tensed, and Max pressed closer to him in response. "I'm not supposed to talk about it." "I understand," Sarah said, "but sometimes rules need to be adjusted when there's an emergency. And your mom not returning when she promised, that's an emergency, isn't it?" Ethan seemed to consider this, his fingers absently stroking Max's fur as he thought. Finally, he nodded. "We move around a lot. Mom says it's to keep us safe." "Safe from what?" Michael asked. "From him," Ethan whispered, his voice dropping so low they had to lean in to hear. "My dad." Sarah felt a chill run through her. "Your father is looking for you?" Ethan nodded, his expression darkening. "He's a bad man. He hurt Mom a lot. That's why we left." How long ago was that?" Michael asked. 3 years, I think. We've lived in 6 different places." Ethan's voice took on a mechanical quality, as if reciting facts he'd memorized. "We never stay more than 6 months. We never use our real names. We never tell anyone where we're going next." The pieces were beginning to fall into place. The abandoned farmhouse, the alias, Ethan's wariness around strangers. They were looking at a family in hiding, on the run from domestic violence. "The farmhouse wasn't supposed to be permanent," Ethan continued. "Mom said it was just until she could get enough money for us to move west. She got a job at a diner in the next town. She was saving up." "And she went to work 2 weeks ago and didn't come back?" Sarah prompted. Ethan nodded, tears welling up again. "She always comes back. Always. Even when things were really bad, she never left me alone for more than a day." Sarah wrapped an arm around his thin shoulders. "That tells me she must be a very good mom who loves you very much." "She is," Ethan said fiercely. "She does everything to protect me." "Then we'll do everything to help find her," Michael promised. "But we need to know more. Do you know which diner she was working at?" Ethan hesitated, then seemed to make a decision. He slipped out from under Sarah's arm and reached for his backpack, which was leaning against the nightstand. From an inner pocket, he extracted a small, worn business card. "Mom gave me this in case of an emergency. It's where she works." The card was for a place called Roadside Diner in Millfield, the neighboring town about 15 miles from Pine Grove. "This is very helpful," Michael said, examining the card. "First thing tomorrow, we'll talk to Officer Bryant and then go check this place out." "Can I come?" Ethan asked anxiously. Sarah and Michael exchanged another look, communicating silently as parents often do. "Let's see what Officer Bryant says," Sarah suggested diplomatically. "It might be better if adults check it out first." Ethan looked like he wanted to argue, but seemed too exhausted to put up much resistance. He nodded reluctantly. "For now, try to get some rest," Sarah said, tucking the blanket around him. "Max will stay with you." As if understanding his assignment, Max settled more comfortably on the bed, his body a warm, protective barrier against the night's terrors. "Thank you," Ethan murmured, his eyelids already drooping despite his evident desire to stay awake and discuss plans for finding his mother. Sarah and Michael quietly left the room, pulling the door nearly closed but leaving it open a crack in case Ethan needed them during the night. They retreated to their bedroom where they could speak more freely. "Domestic violence," Sarah whispered, the weight of Ethan's revelation settling heavily on her shoulders. "They're in hiding." Michael nodded grimly. "Which complicates everything. If his father is dangerous and looking for them, we need to be careful about how we search for Lisa. And if he found her first..." Sarah couldn't bring herself to complete the thought. "Let's not jump to conclusions," Michael cautioned. "There could be other explanations. Maybe she was recognized and had to flee quickly. Maybe she's injured and in a hospital somewhere." Sarah nodded, clinging to these less horrific possibilities. "We should call Bryant right away in the morning, and I think one of us should stay home with Ethan tomorrow. I don't want him alone, even with my parents here." "I can take the day off," Michael offered. "I'll work from home while you go with Bryant to check out the diner." The plan agreed upon, they tried to sleep, but Sarah found herself staring at the ceiling, her mind racing with questions and scenarios. Somewhere out there was a mother desperate to return to her son, or worse, a mother who couldn't return. The thought made Sarah's chest tighten with anxiety. Morning arrived with the insistent beeping of their alarm clock. Sarah felt as if she'd barely closed her eyes, but the day ahead demanded her attention regardless of her fatigue. Downstairs, she was surprised to find Ethan already awake, sitting at the kitchen table with Max at his feet. The boy had showered and was wearing the same clothes as yesterday, now clean and dried from the laundry they'd done the night before. "Good morning," Sarah said, trying to sound more cheerful than she felt. "You're up early." "I always get up at 6, Ethan replied. "I hope it's okay that I gave Max some water. I couldn't find his food. Of course it's okay, Sarah assured him, moving to the pantry to retrieve Max's food. You and Max have a special bond. As she prepared breakfast for everyone, Sarah observed how Ethan's eyes constantly drifted to the windows, as if expecting or fearing someone's arrival. The hypervigilance of a child who had learned to be constantly on alert broke her heart. Michael joined them shortly after, followed by a still sleepy Emma, who brightened considerably at the sight of Max and Ethan at the breakfast table. By the time Officer Bryant called to check in, they had finished eating and were clearing the dishes. "I've got the address for that diner," Michael told Bryant over the phone. "Sarah can meet you there this morning while I stay with the kids." After a brief conversation, he hung up and turned to Sarah. "Bryant will pick you up in 20 minutes. He's bringing a female officer named Rodriguez, who specializes in domestic cases." Sarah nodded, grateful for the additional support. She knelt beside Ethan, who was helping Emma load the dishwasher. "Ethan, I'm going with Officer Bryant to the diner where your mom works. We're going to talk to the people there and see if they know anything that might help us find her." Ethan's face was a mask of anxiety and hope. "What if they don't know anything?" "Then we'll try something else," Sarah promised. "We're not giving up." After Sarah left with the officers, Michael set Emma up with her favorite cartoon, while he and Ethan sat at the dining room table with a map of the area spread out between them. "I thought it might help if we marked all the places connected to you and your mom," Michael explained. "The farmhouse, the diner, anywhere else you can think of that she might go." Ethan considered this, then pointed to the farmhouse on the map. "We've been here for about a month. Before that, we were staying at a motel on Highway 16, but it got too expensive." Michael marked the location. "And the diner is here in Millfield. Any other places your mom mentioned? Friends, other jobs, places she liked to go?" Ethan shook his head. "We don't really make friends. It's not safe." The sadness in his voice made Michael pause in his mapping. "That must be hard." Ethan shrugged, but the gesture couldn't mask the loneliness evident in his expression. "You get used to it." "What about school?" Michael asked. "Have you been attending school here?" "I do homeschool," Ethan explained. "Mom gets me workbooks and library books. I'm good at teaching myself." Michael nodded, impressed despite the concerning circumstances. "You must be very disciplined." A flash of pride crossed Ethan's face. "Mom says I'm at grade level in everything except maybe science. It's hard to do experiments when you move around a lot." The roadside diner looked exactly as its name suggested, a small, silver-sided building just off the highway with a flickering neon sign and a nearly empty parking lot. The morning rush, if there ever was one, had apparently ended, leaving only a few trucks and an old sedan parked outside. Sarah followed Officer Bryant and Officer Rodriguez into the diner, the bell above the door announcing their arrival. Inside, the smell of coffee and grease hung in the air. A few truckers hunched over plates of eggs and hash browns at the counter, while a waitress refilled their mugs with practiced efficiency. "Take a seat wherever," the waitress called without looking up from her coffee pot. Officer Bryant led them to a booth near the back where they could speak privately while still observing the entire diner. A different waitress approached them, her name tag reading Doreen. She was middle-aged with tired eyes and hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. "What can I get you folks?" she asked, pulling an order pad from her apron pocket. "Just coffee for now," Bryant replied, then added, "Actually, we're looking for someone who works here. Lisa Carter?" Doreen's expression shifted subtly, her professional smile faltering for just a moment. "Lisa doesn't work here anymore." "When did she leave?" Officer Rodriguez asked gently. Doreen glanced at their uniforms, now clearly visible as they'd settled into the booth. "You cops? Something happened to Lisa?" "We're just trying to locate her," Bryant assured her. Her son is worried. The mention of Ethan seemed to soften Doreen's wariness. Poor kid, she murmured. Lisa talked about him all the time, said he was the smartest boy in the world. When did you last see her? Rodriguez pressed. Doreen sighed, glancing around the diner before sliding into the booth beside Sarah, lowering her voice. About 2 weeks ago. She didn't show up for her shift and nobody's heard from her since. Boss was furious. We're short-staffed as it is. But it wasn't like Lisa. She was reliable, worked hard, even picked up extra shifts whenever she could. Sarah felt her heart sink. This confirmed what Ethan had told them. Lisa's disappearance was completely out of character. Did anything unusual happen before she disappeared? Rodriguez asked. Did she seem worried or frightened about anything? Doreen thought for a moment. There was something. A few days before she vanished, a man came in asking for her. Lisa went white as a sheet when she saw him, asked me to cover her tables, and disappeared into the bathroom for nearly 20 minutes. Bryant leaned forward. Did you get a name? A description? No name, but he was tall, well-dressed. Expensive watch, designer sunglasses. Seemed out of place here, if you know what I mean. Most of our customers are locals or truckers passing through. Did he speak to Lisa? Not that I saw. By the time she came out of the bathroom, he was gone, but she was shaking so bad she dropped an entire tray of dishes. Boss sent her home early. Sarah and the officers exchanged glances. This had to be Ethan's father. Did Lisa ever mention being afraid of someone? Sarah asked. Her ex, perhaps? Doreen's eyes narrowed slightly. Who did you say you were again? This is Sarah Walters, Bryant explained. Ethan is staying with her family temporarily while we search for Lisa. Doreen seemed to accept this explanation. Lisa didn't talk much about her past. But once, after a few drinks at Marge's birthday party, she mentioned leaving a bad situation, said she'd rather die than go back. She paused, her face clouding with worry. You don't think he found her, do you? This ex? We're exploring all possibilities, Rodriguez said diplomatically. Do you have any idea where Lisa was living? Did she ever mention the old Willoughby farmhouse? Doreen shook her head. She was private about that kind of thing. Said it was safer if people didn't know where she laid her head. What about friends? Sarah asked. Was there anyone she was close to here? Not really. She kept to herself mostly. But she did mention once that if anything ever happened to her, there was a woman named Grace who would help Ethan. I got the impression this Grace person was from before, though, from whatever life Lisa left behind. Bryant made a note. Grace. Any last name? None that she mentioned. Is there anything else you can tell us? Rodriguez asked. Anything at all that might help us find her? Doreen hesitated, then reached into her apron pocket and extracted a small key. Lisa's locker. She has some personal items in there. Boss was going to clear it out this week, but I kept putting him off. She slid the key across the table. Maybe there's something in there that could help. The employee locker room was a cramped space at the back of the diner, containing a row of dented metal lockers and a small table with mismatched chairs. Doreen led them to a locker in the corner, marked with a piece of masking tape bearing the name Lisa. The key turned easily, and the locker door swung open. Inside were few possessions: a cardigan sweater, a paperback novel with a dog-eared corner, a small makeup bag, and a cheap cell phone charger. Not much to go on, Bryant observed, carefully examining each item. Sarah reached for the novel, a used copy of To Kill a Mockingbird. As she flipped through it, a photograph fell out from between the pages. It showed a younger Lisa with a boy who must have been Ethan around age 7 or 8. They were standing in front of a lake, both smiling broadly. On the back, written in neat handwriting, were the words, Summer at Grace's Cabin, 2018. Look at this, Sarah said, showing the photo to the officers. This must be the Grace that Doreen mentioned. Rodriguez examined the photograph. There's a lake in the background. Does that look familiar to anyone? Bryant took the photo, studying it closely. Could be Lake Merrill. It's about 30 miles north of here. There are a bunch of vacation cabins up there. If Lisa was in trouble, Sarah suggested, might she have gone somewhere familiar, somewhere she felt safe before? It's worth checking out, Bryant agreed. I'll see if we can find any property records for someone named Grace near Lake Merrill. They thanked Doreen for her help and left the diner, armed with more questions than answers, but at least a potential lead to follow. On the drive back to Pine Grove, Sarah's mind raced. The pieces were starting to form a picture, but it was still frustratingly incomplete. A mother and son on the run from an abusive ex. A man who somehow tracked them down. A woman named Grace who might be able to help. And somewhere in the middle of it all, a German shepherd who had inadvertently connected all their lives. Back at the house, they found Michael and Ethan in the backyard. Michael was demonstrating how to throw a frisbee, while Max waited eagerly for the disc to fly. Emma sat on the porch steps, cheering them on. It was such a normal, peaceful scene that Sarah felt almost guilty for the information she was about to share. How could she tell this boy that his mother might have fled because his father had found them? Or worse, that his father might have found his mother before she could get back to him? Bryant seemed to read her thoughts. "Let me take the lead on this," he said quietly as they approached the yard. "I've had training in talking to children in these situations." Sarah nodded gratefully, hanging back a bit as Bryant called out a greeting. Max was the first to notice their arrival, his ears perking up as he abandoned the frisbee to trot over to Sarah. "You're back," Emma exclaimed, jumping up from her perch on the steps. Ethan's reaction was more measured. He stood rooted to the spot, his eyes scanning Sarah's face, searching for answers before she even spoke. "Did you find her?" he asked, his voice barely audible. Bryant approached slowly, kneeling down to Ethan's level. "We didn't find her yet, but we did learn some important things that might help us." Ethan's shoulders slumped in disappointment, but he nodded for Bryant to continue. "Your mom was working at the diner until about 2 weeks ago, which matches when you said she disappeared," Bryant explained gently. "One of her co-workers told us that a few days before that, a man came into the diner looking for her, and your mom seemed very scared when she saw him." Ethan's face paled. "It was him. He found us." The fear in Ethan's voice confirmed what they had all begun to suspect. This wasn't just a case of a mother abandoning her child. This was a woman in genuine danger, desperate to protect her son. "We don't know that for certain," Bryant said carefully, "but it's a possibility we need to consider." Max seemed to sense Ethan's distress, pressing his body against the boy's legs. Ethan's hand automatically dropped to the dog's head, seeking comfort in the familiar touch. "If he found Mom..." Ethan's voice trailed off, unable to complete the thought. "We found something else," Sarah said gently, kneeling beside Bryant. "A photograph of you and your mom at a lake. The back mentioned someone named Grace." Ethan's eyes widened with recognition. "Aunt Grace? That's Mom's best friend from college. She's not really my aunt, but that's what I've always called her." "Do you know where she lives?" Bryant asked. Ethan shook his head. "We haven't seen her in a long time. Not since..." He paused, his forehead creasing in concentration. "Not since I was 8, I think. We stayed at her cabin for a few weeks after we first left Dad. But then Mom said it wasn't safe to stay in touch with anyone from before." "The photo mentioned a cabin at a lake," Sarah prompted. "Do you remember anything about it? The name of the lake, perhaps?" Ethan closed his eyes, trying to recall. It had a weird name, something like Merrow or Marrow. "Merrill," Bryant suggested. "Lake Merrill?" "Yes," Ethan's eyes flew open. That's it. Lake Merrill. Aunt Grace's cabin was right on the water. Mom and I used to swim every day. Bryant nodded, excitement building. I'm going to check if there are any property records for a Grace at Lake Merrill. If your mom felt threatened, she might have gone somewhere she considered safe before. Can we go there? Ethan asked eagerly. Right now? Hold on, Michael cautioned, placing a gentle hand on Ethan's shoulder. First, we need to confirm if Grace actually has a property there and if your mom might be with her. But Ethan began to protest. Your safety has to come first, Sarah reminded him gently. If your father is looking for you, we need to be extremely careful about where we go and who we contact. The logic of this seemed to penetrate Ethan's desperation. He nodded reluctantly, though the disappointment was clear on his face. I'll call this in right away, Bryant said, already pulling out his phone. If we find an address for Grace, we can send officers to check it out. While Bryant made his call, Sarah suggested they all go inside. The October air had turned chilly and the topic of conversation required more privacy than the open backyard allowed. In the kitchen, Sarah prepared hot chocolate for everyone, the mundane task helping to restore a sense of normalcy to the increasingly tense situation. Emma, sensing the gravity of the adult conversation, quietly sipped her drink, her eyes moving between Ethan and her parents with concern. Officer Rodriguez is going to stay with you while I head to the station to coordinate the search, Bryant announced after ending his call. I've got deputies running the property records for Lake Merrill now. How long will that take? Ethan asked anxiously. Hopefully not long, Bryant assured him. County records are all digital these days. As if on cue, Bryant's phone rang. He answered it, listening intently, his expression growing increasingly focused. Are you sure? He asked the caller. No, that's extremely helpful. Send the address to my phone immediately. He hung up, turning to the group with renewed energy. They found her. Grace Wilson owns a cabin on the northwest shore of Lake Merrill, and here's the interesting part. A neighbor reported seeing a woman matching Lisa's description arriving there approximately 2 weeks ago. Ethan nearly knocked over his hot chocolate in his excitement. That's her. That has to be Mom. Can we go, please? Sarah and Michael exchanged looks, their parental instincts warring with Ethan's obvious need to find his mother. I'm heading there now, Bryant said, already moving toward the door. I'll call as soon as I know anything. Please, Ethan begged, looking from Bryant to Sarah and Michael. I need to go. What if she doesn't believe you're really police? She's been hiding for so long she doesn't trust anyone. Bryant hesitated, clearly weighing the professional protocols against the practical realities of the situation. He has a point, Michael said quietly. If Lisa is in hiding and traumatized, she might not open the door for strangers, even police. And if she sees Ethan, she'll know it's safe, Sarah added. Bryant sighed, rubbing his forehead. It's not by the book, but then again, nothing about this case has been. Officer Rodriguez will accompany us and you'll all stay in the car until we've secured the scene. Deal? Ethan nodded eagerly, relief washing over his face. Deal. The drive to Lake Merrill took just over 45 minutes, but to Ethan it clearly felt like an eternity. He sat in the back seat of Bryant's patrol car, sandwiched between Sarah and Officer Rodriguez, alternating between anxious silence and rapid-fire questions about what would happen when they arrived. Max had been left at home with Michael and Emma, a decision that had almost derailed the entire plan, until Sarah promised Ethan they would return for the dog as soon as they'd found his mother. What if she's not there? Ethan asked for the third time as they turned onto a narrow gravel road that led toward the lake. What if she left already? Then we'll keep looking, Sarah assured him, squeezing his hand. We're not giving up, remember? Bryant slowed the car as they approached a cluster of cabins nestled among tall pine trees. The lake shimmered in the distance, its surface reflecting the cloudy October sky. That's the one, Bryant said, pointing to a small, weathered cabin at the end of the road. Number 17. A compact blue car was parked outside, its license plate covered in mud. There was no sign of movement from within the cabin, but smoke curled lazily from the chimney, indicating someone was home. "Remember the deal," Bryant reminded them, turning to look at Ethan. "You stay in the car with Sarah and Officer Rodriguez until I've checked things out." Ethan nodded, though his body language suggested compliance might be a struggle if the wait proved too long. Bryant exited the car and approached the cabin cautiously, his hand resting near his holster more from habit than expectation of danger. He knocked on the door, announcing himself as police. No response came. He knocked again, louder this time. "Pine Grove Police Department. I need to speak with you regarding Lisa Carter." The curtain in the front window moved slightly, but the door remained closed. "Ma'am, I have Ethan with me," Bryant called, changing tactics. "He's safe, but he's very worried about his mother." At the mention of Ethan's name, the door cracked open, revealing a sliver of a woman's face. From the car, Sarah could see she had dark hair and pale skin, but little else was visible. "Where is he?" the woman demanded, her voice trembling. "If you're lying," Bryant gestured toward the patrol car. "He's right there, ma'am, in the back seat." The woman's gaze shifted to the car, and when she spotted Ethan, a sob escaped her. She pushed the door open wider, revealing herself fully. She was thin, with long dark hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, and her face bore the unmistakable marks of recent bruising, a yellowing area around her left eye and cheekbone. "Ethan!" she cried, starting toward the car. That was all it took. Despite the agreement, Ethan wrenched open the car door and bolted toward the woman. "Mom!" he shouted, closing the distance between them in seconds. They collided in a desperate embrace, both crying openly now. Lisa clutched her son as if she feared he might disappear, her hands checking him over for injuries even as she held him. "You're okay," she kept repeating. "You're okay. I was so scared. I'm so sorry." Sarah and Officer Rodriguez had followed Ethan from the car, maintaining a respectful distance from the reunion. Bryant moved closer to Lisa, his expression softening at the emotional scene, but his professional concern still evident. "Mrs. Carter," Bryant said gently, once the initial wave of emotion had subsided, "we need to talk about what happened." Lisa looked up, her arms still wrapped protectively around Ethan. Her gaze moved from Bryant to Sarah and Rodriguez, wariness replacing relief in her eyes. "Let's go inside," she suggested, ushering Ethan toward the cabin. "It's not safe out in the open." The interior of the cabin was modest but clean, a single large room with a kitchenette in one corner, a small sitting area with a wood stove in another, and two doors that presumably led to bedrooms. The furnishings were sparse, giving the impression of a temporary arrangement rather than a permanent home. "Is this Aunt Grace's cabin?" Ethan asked, looking around curiously. Lisa nodded, gesturing for everyone to sit. "She's letting me stay here until I figure things out. She's in Florida visiting her sister." "Mrs. Carter," Bryant began again, taking a seat on the worn sofa. "Lisa, please," she interrupted. "And it's not Carter. That's just an alias." She hesitated, then added, "My real name is Lisa Mercer." Bryant nodded, making a note. "Lisa, we need to understand what happened. Ethan was alone at the Willoughby farmhouse for nearly 2 weeks." Lisa's face crumpled with guilt. "I never meant to leave him alone for so long. It was supposed to be 1 night, maybe 2 at most." She turned to Ethan, cupping his face in her hands. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I would never abandon you. You know that, right?" Ethan nodded, his complete faith in his mother evident despite the ordeal he'd endured. "Can you tell us what happened?" Officer Rodriguez prompted gently. Lisa took a deep breath, her hands trembling slightly. "Robert found us, my ex-husband. He came into the diner where I work. I managed to hide in the bathroom until he left. But I knew it was only a matter of time before he tracked us to the farmhouse. So you ran, Sarah supplied. Not at first, Lisa said. I finished my shift, trying to act normal. But when I was driving home, I noticed a black SUV following me. I took a different route, trying to lose it, but it stayed with me. I knew I couldn't lead him to Ethan. What did you do? Brian asked. I drove in the opposite direction of the farmhouse, ended up on the highway heading north. The SUV followed me for nearly 30 miles before I managed to lose it at a truck stop. By then, it was too dangerous to go back. If Robert was watching the farmhouse. You were protecting Ethan, Sarah said softly. Lisa nodded, gratitude in her eyes at being understood. I called Grace from a payphone. She said I could use her cabin. I was going to call Ethan from here, but when I arrived, I found my phone was gone. I must have dropped it during the chase. I was afraid to go into town to use a phone. Robert has ways of tracking calls. So you were stranded here, Bryant concluded. I tried to get a message to Ethan, Lisa insisted. I convinced a delivery driver to take a note to the farmhouse, but he must not have delivered it. There was no note when we found Ethan, Sarah confirmed. Lisa's shoulders slumped. I've been out of my mind with worry. I was planning to risk going back tomorrow, darkness or not. I couldn't stand another day not knowing if he was safe. Mom, Ethan interjected, I wasn't alone the whole time. I had Max. Lisa's brow furrowed in confusion. Max? The German Shepherd, Ethan explained excitedly. He was hurt and I helped him. He stayed with me and protected me. He even scared away a coyote. Lisa looked bewildered, turning to the others for explanation. Max is our dog, Sarah explained. He went missing 3 weeks ago. Ethan found him injured and nursed him back to health. Max stayed with him at the farmhouse until we found them both yesterday. Understanding dawned on Lisa's face. That's incredible. She turned to Ethan with a proud smile. You always did have a way with animals. He's waiting at Sarah and Michael's house, Ethan continued. Can we go get him, please? I promised I'd be back. Before Lisa could respond, Bryant cleared his throat. Before we make any plans, we need to discuss your safety, Lisa. If your ex-husband is still looking for you and Ethan, you could both be in danger. Lisa's expression darkened. Robert won't stop. He's obsessed with controlling us, especially Ethan. He wants to mold him into his image. She unconsciously touched the bruise on her face. This wasn't the first time he found us. Last year in Ohio, he tracked us down. I barely got us out in time. Did you report the abuse? Rodriguez asked. Lisa laughed bitterly. Many times in the beginning. Robert is a prominent attorney with friends in high places. The one time I convinced a judge to grant a restraining order, Robert violated it repeatedly with no consequences. The system failed us, so we fled. Sarah felt a surge of indignation on Lisa's behalf. The story was all too familiar. Women and children failed by the very systems meant to protect them. This time will be different, Bryant promised. We'll file a report documenting the stalking and harassment. And that bruise on your face, did Robert do that when he found you? Lisa nodded, her hand instinctively rising to her cheekbone again. He caught up with me at a gas station about 20 miles from here, 3 days after I fled the diner. He tried to force me into his car. When I fought back, he hit me. I managed to pepper spray him and escape. That's assault, Bryant said firmly. And we have witnesses at the diner who saw him stalking you. It's enough to file charges. Lisa didn't look convinced. You don't know Robert. He'll charm his way out of it, or pay someone off. He always does. Not this time, Brian insisted. Not in my jurisdiction. Lisa looked at Ethan, who was watching the conversation with the solemn understanding of a child who had grown up too fast. I just want him to be safe, to have a normal childhood. And he deserves that, Sarah said. Both of you deserve peace." A contemplative silence fell over the room, broken only by the crackling of the fire in the wood stove. Outside, the afternoon light was beginning to fade, casting long shadows through the cabin windows. "What happens now?" Lisa finally asked. "First, we document your injuries and take your statement," Bryant explained. "Then we file for an emergency protection order. In the meantime, you and Ethan need to stay somewhere safe." "We can go back to the house in Pine Grove," Sarah offered without hesitation. "At least temporarily. We have plenty of room, and it would give Ethan a chance to see Max again." Lisa looked uncertain. "I don't want to impose. You've already done so much by taking care of Ethan." "It's not an imposition," Sarah assured her. "And honestly, I think Max would be heartbroken if Ethan disappeared from his life. They've formed quite a bond." A ghost of a smile crossed Lisa's face. "Ethan always wanted a dog. We could never have one, always moving around." She trailed off, guilt evident in her expression. "Max needed Ethan as much as Ethan needed him," Sarah said gently. "They helped each other through a difficult time." "Please, Mom," Ethan pleaded. "Just for a little while. I want you to meet Max." Lisa sighed, the weight of decisions and dangers visible in the slump of her shoulders. "If Officer Bryant thinks it's safe, I can assign a patrol to drive by regularly," Bryant offered, "and we'll keep your location confidential during the investigation." "Just until we figure out the next steps," Sarah added. "No pressure beyond that." Lisa considered for a moment, then nodded. "All right. Thank you." The relief on Ethan's face was immediate. "Can I call Michael and tell him we're coming? I want to let Max know too." Lisa smiled, a genuine smile this time, the first they'd seen from her. "You can't call a dog on the phone, silly. Max understands more than you think," Ethan insisted with the certainty only a child could possess. "He's special." As arrangements were made for Lisa to gather her few belongings and accompany them back to Pine Grove, Sarah couldn't help but reflect on the strange series of events that had brought them all together. A missing dog, a boy alone, a mother in hiding, separate threads that had somehow woven together into an unexpected tapestry. The journey back to Pine Grove felt markedly different from the tense drive to Lake Merrill. Ethan chattered excitedly to his mother, filling her in on everything that had happened during their separation, his survival at the farmhouse, finding and healing Max, meeting the Walters family. Lisa listened with a mixture of pride, relief, and lingering guilt evident in her expression. Sarah observed them from the front passenger seat of Bryant's patrol car, struck by the resilience of this small family that had endured so much. Despite years on the run and the constant fear of discovery, they had maintained a bond that was palpable in every glance, every touch between mother and son. "He sounds like an amazing dog," Lisa was saying as Ethan described how Max had scared away the coyote that had been circling the farmhouse. "He is," Ethan confirmed emphatically. "And he's super smart. He knew something was wrong when I was alone for too long. He never left my side, even when his paw was still sore." Lisa caught Sarah's eye over Ethan's head, mouthing a silent thank you that encompassed far more than just the care of her son. Sarah nodded in acknowledgement, understanding the depth of gratitude behind that simple gesture. As they reached the outskirts of Pine Grove, Bryant's radio crackled to life. He listened intently to a message from dispatch, his expression growing increasingly serious. 10-4, he responded, then glanced in the rearview mirror at Lisa. "Mrs. Mercer, we've received a report that might concern you. A man matching your ex-husband's description was seen at a gas station in town about an hour ago, asking questions about a woman and boy." Lisa's face drained of color. "He's here? In Pine Grove?" "We don't know for certain it's him," Bryant cautioned, "but I've asked for additional patrols in the area. particularly around the Walters home. "Maybe this isn't a good idea," Lisa said, her earlier confidence evaporating. "If Robert is in town, we could be leading him straight to your family." She directed this last comment to Sarah, her eyes wide with fear. "Or the safest place for you right now could be a home with officers watching it," Bryant countered. "If he's already in Pine Grove, he might have other ways of finding you. At least this way we're prepared." Sarah nodded in agreement. "Michael and Emma are already home and they've been warned to keep the doors locked. We'll be careful." "I don't want to put anyone else in danger," Lisa insisted. "Robert can be unpredictable when he's angry." Ethan reached for his mother's hand. "Mom, please, I need to see Max. I promised him I'd be back." The simplicity of the child's concern in the midst of such complicated adult dangers seemed to reach Lisa. She squeezed Ethan's hand and nodded reluctantly. "All right, but at the first sign of trouble, we leave. No arguments." Bryant took a more circuitous route to the Walters home, checking several times to ensure they weren't being followed. As they pulled into the driveway, Sarah saw Michael peering out the front window, Emma's small face visible beside him. "They're waiting for us," she said softly. As they exited the car, the front door opened and Max bounded out, making a beeline for Ethan. The German Shepherd skidded to a stop in front of the boy, his entire body wiggling with joy, his tail a blur of happy motion. "Max!" Ethan cried, dropping to his knees to receive the dog's enthusiastic greeting. Max covered the boy's face with kisses, whining softly as if expressing his relief at being reunited. Lisa watched the interaction with a mix of amazement and trepidation. When Max finally noticed her, he approached more cautiously, sniffing at her extended hand. "Hello, Max," she said softly. "Thank you for taking care of my son." As if understanding her words, Max gave her fingers a gentle lick, then returned to Ethan's side, pressing against the boy protectively. Michael and Emma joined them in the yard, Emma rushing forward with her usual exuberance while Michael approached more slowly, offering his hand to Lisa. "Welcome," he said simply. "We're glad you're safe." Lisa shook his hand, her wariness still evident but softened by the genuine warmth of his greeting. "Thank you for taking care of Ethan. I don't know how to repay you." "No repayment necessary," Michael assured her. "Any decent person would have done the same." Emma, having greeted Ethan and Max with equal enthusiasm, now stood before Lisa, studying her with unabashed curiosity. "You're Ethan's mom," she stated. "He was really worried about you." Lisa knelt to the little girl's level, her expression gentle. "Yes, I am, and I was very worried about him too." "Max kept him safe," Emma said seriously. "He's a good dog." "Yes, he is," Lisa agreed, glancing at the German Shepherd who hadn't moved from Ethan's side. "A very good dog." Bryant cleared his throat, reminding them of the potential danger. "Let's continue this inside," he suggested, his eyes scanning the quiet street. Once inside, with doors locked and curtains drawn, the group gathered in the living room. Officer Rodriguez arranged to remain outside in an unmarked car, keeping watch on the street. "I've put on coffee," Michael announced. "And there's hot chocolate for the kids." "And dog biscuits for Max," Emma added importantly. The domesticity of these simple offerings struck Sarah as both absurdly normal and profoundly necessary. In the midst of danger and uncertainty, routine provided a semblance of safety, however illusory it might be. As Michael distributed drinks, Bryant outlined the security measures being put in place. "We've got patrol cars making regular passes by the house," he explained, "and I've put out an alert for Robert Mercer's vehicle, a black Range Rover with Virginia plates, according to Lisa. He might not be driving his own car," Lisa cautioned. "Robert is smart. He knows how to avoid detection." "We're checking rental agencies too," Bryant assured her, and I've got officers reviewing security footage from the gas station where he was spotted. Lisa nodded, but her posture remained tense, her eyes darting to the windows despite the drawn curtains. She sat close to Ethan on the sofa, one arm wrapped protectively around his shoulders. "What's the plan beyond tonight?" Michael asked, voicing the question that hung in the air. Bryant sighed, setting down his coffee mug. "Ideally, we build a case against Robert Mercer for stalking, harassment, and assault. Lisa files for an emergency protection order. And then what?" Lisa asked bitterly. "We've been down this road before. Restraining orders, police reports, none of it stopped him." "This time will be different," Bryant insisted, though Sarah could hear the slight uncertainty beneath his confidence. "Different jurisdiction, different circumstances. And this time, we have evidence of ongoing stalking across state lines, which elevates it to a federal offense." Lisa didn't look convinced. "Robert has friends in high places, judges, police chiefs. He's even got connections to a state senator." "Not here, he doesn't," Bryant said firmly. "This is my town, and I don't care who he knows elsewhere." A silence fell over the room, broken only by the sound of Max's tail thumping against the floor as Ethan absently stroked his fur. "Can I ask something?" Sarah ventured. "Why is Robert so determined to find you? It's been 3 years. Most people would have moved on by now." Lisa's face darkened. "It's not about love or even normal possessiveness. It's about control. Robert can't stand losing something he considers his property, and he has very specific plans for Ethan's future." "What kind of plans?" Michael asked. "Robert comes from a political family," Lisa explained. "His father was a congressman, his grandfather a federal judge. He has this dynasty fantasy, Ethan following in their footsteps, carrying on the family legacy. When I left, I didn't just take his son, I took his heir." The weight of this explanation settled heavily on everyone. It wasn't just about a jealous ex-husband. It was about a man obsessed with power and legacy, willing to cross state lines and break laws to reclaim what he saw as his birthright. "That's why we can never stop running," Lisa concluded softly. "He'll never give up." Night fell over Pine Grove, bringing with it a tense silence that seemed to press against the windows of the Walters home. The children had been settled into bed, Ethan in the guest room with Max curled protectively at his feet, Emma in her own room across the hall. Lisa had refused the offer of Sarah and Michael's bedroom, insisting she was comfortable on the living room sofa, where she could keep watch on the front door. "You need to rest too," Sarah gently suggested, bringing Lisa a spare pillow and blanket. "You've been through a lot." Lisa accepted the bedding with a grateful but weary smile. "I haven't had a proper night's sleep in 3 years," she admitted, always waiting for the other shoe to drop. Sarah sat beside her on the sofa, the house quiet around them. Michael had gone upstairs to check on the children, and Bryant had left after setting up a rotation of patrol cars to drive by the house throughout the night. "Can I ask you something?" Sarah ventured. "How did you manage all this time? Just you and Ethan, always on the move?" Lisa looked down at her hands, her fingers methodically smoothing the edge of the blanket. "You do what you have to do for your child," she said simply. "And Ethan, he's been so brave through all of it. Sometimes I think he's the one holding me together, not the other way around." "He's an amazing kid," Sarah agreed. "Resourceful, kind, resilient." "He gets that from my father," Lisa said with a soft smile. "Dad was the same way. Could make something out of nothing, always found the silver lining. He would have loved to see the man Ethan is becoming." Her voice caught on the last words. "Your father isn't?" "He died 6 months before I left Robert," Lisa explained. "Cancer. My mother passed when I was in college, so it was just Dad and me for a long time. After he was gone, I had no one to turn to when things with Robert got bad." The pieces were fitting together now. The isolation that had made Lisa vulnerable, the absence of family support that might have offered shelter when she fled with Ethan. "What about your friend Grace?" Sarah asked. "Grace and I were roommates in college. She's the closest thing to family I have left, but she has her own life. I can't keep dragging her into my mess." Lisa sighed, rubbing her temples. "I've spent 3 years burning bridges to keep Ethan safe. Sometimes I wonder if we'll have anything left to go back to when this is all over." "If it's ever over," her tone implied. "You have Ethan," Sarah reminded her gently. "And now you have us too." Lisa looked up, surprise evident in her expression. "You barely know me." "Sometimes you don't need years to recognize a kindred spirit," Sarah said. "And after what Max and Ethan have been through together, I'd say we're already connected in ways that matter." Lisa's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything." The moment was interrupted by the sound of footsteps on the stairs. Michael appeared, his expression troubled. "Everything okay up there?" Sarah asked. "The kids are fine," he assured her. "Ethan's finally asleep, but I just got a call from Bryant." He hesitated, glancing at Lisa. "They've confirmed it was Robert at the gas station. Security footage shows him clearly. And there's more. He was asking specifically about the Willoughby property." Lisa's face paled. "He knows about the farmhouse? How?" "Bryant thinks he might have followed the same trail we did, asking around town, checking with locals who might have seen something unusual at the abandoned property." "If he knows about the farmhouse, he could be heading there now," Lisa realized, already standing up. "Bryant's sending officers there to check," Michael assured her. "But he wants us to be extra vigilant tonight. They haven't located Robert's vehicle yet, which means he's still in the area." Lisa began pacing, her earlier exhaustion replaced by nervous energy. "We shouldn't stay here. We're putting your family at risk." "The safest place for you right now is here," Sarah insisted, rising to stand in Lisa's path. "Where officers know to check on you, where you have people around you who care." "You don't understand," Lisa said, her voice breaking. "Robert isn't just persistent. He's dangerous when cornered. And right now, he's both desperate and angry." "All the more reason not to be alone," Michael countered. "We're stronger together." Before Lisa could argue further, a low growl emanated from the top of the stairs. They all turned to see Max standing there, his posture rigid, his ears pricked forward. "Max?" Sarah called softly. "What is it, boy?" The German shepherd growled again, then turned and trotted back down the hallway toward Ethan's room. Michael and Sarah exchanged alarmed glances. Without a word, they hurried up the stairs, Lisa close behind. Max was in Ethan's room, standing at the window, his body tense, a continuous low growl rumbling in his chest. Ethan was awake now, sitting up in bed. "What's wrong with Max?" he asked, his voice small with fear. Michael approached the window cautiously, peering through a gap in the curtains. The street appeared deserted, the only light coming from a street lamp at the corner. Everything looked normal, and yet... "There," he whispered, pointing to a dark shape partially hidden by the Henderson's hedge across the street. A car, engine off, lights off. Sarah felt her heart rate accelerate. "Could be anyone," she said, trying to sound calmer than she felt. "Mrs. Henderson's son sometimes visits late." "Mrs. Henderson's son drives a red pickup," Michael reminded her. "That's a sedan of some kind, dark-colored." Lisa had moved to Ethan's side, one arm wrapped protectively around him. "It's him," she said with certainty. "He's watching the house." "I'll call Bryant," Michael said, already pulling out his phone. "No," Lisa said, her voice suddenly steady with resolve. "No more running, no more hiding. I'm tired of living in fear." She turned to Sarah. "Do you have a phone I can use?" "Not a cell phone, a landline." "In the kitchen," Sarah confirmed, puzzled by the request. "Good." I need to make a call." There was a new determination in Lisa's voice, a steel that hadn't been there before. "It's time to end this, once and for all." While Michael stayed with the children, Sarah accompanied Lisa downstairs to the kitchen. Max followed, his attention divided between the window and Ethan, as if torn between guarding against the external threat and staying with the boy he'd protected for weeks. "Who are you calling at this hour?" Sarah asked as Lisa picked up the landline. "Someone who can help," Lisa said cryptically, dialing a number from memory. "Someone I should have called 3 years ago." She waited, her posture tense as the phone rang. Finally, someone answered. "This is Lisa Mercer," she said, her voice clear and firm. "Yes, that Lisa Mercer. I need to speak with her immediately." "Yes, I understand it's late. Tell her it's about Robert and tell her I'm ready to talk." Sarah watched in confusion as Lisa waited, the phone pressed tightly to her ear. After what seemed like an eternity, her posture changed, relaxing slightly. "Catherine," she said, relief evident in her voice. "Yes, it's really me, I know. It's been a long time. I need your help. Robert has found us again, and this time I'm not running. Because I'm tired, Catherine. Ethan deserves better than a life on the run, always looking over our shoulders." "Yes, I understand what that means." "No, I'm ready. I have evidence this time. Documented abuse, stalking across state lines. He's here now, watching the house where we're staying. Pine Grove, about 3 hours north of your office." "Yes, I'll text you the address from a different phone. Thank you, Catherine. I'll see you in the morning." Lisa hung up, exhaling slowly as if releasing a burden she'd carried for years. "Who's Catherine?" Sarah asked. "Robert's sister," Lisa replied, meeting Sarah's shocked gaze steadily, "and the only person in the world he might actually fear." "His sister?" Sarah repeated incredulously. "You're bringing his sister here?" Lisa's mouth curved in a grim smile. "Catherine Mercer is the Deputy Attorney General for the state. She's been trying to get me to testify against Robert for years, but I was too afraid. She has a file on him, abuse allegations from before me, financial irregularities, witness intimidation, but she needed a victim willing to go on record." "And now you're willing," Sarah realized. Lisa nodded. "For Ethan, for a chance at a real life." She glanced toward the window, where Max still stood guard. Seeing Ethan with that dog the way Max protected him, it made me realize we deserve that kind of loyalty and protection too. We deserve to feel safe. Dawn broke over Pine Grove with streaks of pink and gold illuminating the autumn sky. The dark sedan that had been parked across the street was gone, having disappeared sometime before midnight after Officer Rodriguez had driven slowly past it, making her presence known. Inside the Walters home, no one had slept much. Lisa and Sarah had taken turns keeping watch downstairs while Michael stayed with the children upstairs. Max had refused to leave his post by the window in Ethan's room, his vigilance unwavering throughout the night. The sound of tires on the gravel driveway alerted them to a visitor. Sarah peered through the curtains to see a sleek black SUV with government plates pulling up beside Bryant's patrol car, which had arrived minutes earlier. "Is that her?" Sarah asked Lisa, who had joined her at the window. Lisa nodded, a complex mixture of emotions playing across her face. Catherine always was punctual. The woman who emerged from the SUV carried herself with unmistakable authority. Tall and elegantly dressed in a tailored pantsuit, she had the same dark hair as Lisa, though hers was cut in a sharp bob that emphasized her angular features. She spoke briefly with Bryant before both approached the front door. Sarah opened the door before they could knock, ushering them inside quickly. "Lisa," Catherine said, her professional demeanor softening slightly as she took in her former sister-in-law's appearance. "It's been a long time." 3 years, 2 months, and 16 days, Lisa replied. But who's counting? A ghost of a smile touched Catherine's lips. You look good, all things considered. Where is he? Lisa asked, bypassing the pleasantries. His car was outside all evening. Gone, at least temporarily, Bryant reported. We tracked the vehicle to the Silver Moon Motel on the edge of town. It's a rental, just as you suspected. We have officers watching it now. He won't stay gone for long, Catherine warned. Once Robert sets his mind on something, he doesn't give up easily. It's a family trait. This last comment was delivered with a hint of self-awareness. Where's Ethan? I'd like to see him. He's upstairs with our daughter and Max, our dog, Michael explained, having come down to join them. They're having breakfast in Emma's room. We thought it best to keep them occupied. Catherine nodded approvingly. Good. This isn't a conversation for children's ears. She turned to Lisa. I have news that couldn't wait for normal business hours. The federal prosecutor has agreed to take your case. With the evidence I've gathered over the years, combined with Robert's most recent actions, they're prepared to charge him with stalking across state lines, violation of protective orders in 3 states, and assault. Lisa's eyes widened. Just like that? After all these years of being told there wasn't enough evidence? Not just like that, Catherine corrected. I've been building this case since you left, collecting testimony from other victims, documenting the pattern of abuse and intimidation. All I needed was you, willing to testify. Other victims? Lisa whispered. Catherine's expression tightened. You weren't the first, Lisa. Just the first to take his child and run. She hesitated, then added more gently, and you were right to do so. The things I've learned about my brother over the past 3 years, let's just say our parents would be devastated to know what he's become. A noise from the stairs drew everyone's attention. Ethan stood there, Max at his side as always. The boy's face was solemn, his eyes fixed on Catherine. Aunt Kathy, he said hesitantly. Catherine's professional facade cracked at the sight of him. Ethan, she breathed, look at you. You've grown so much. Ethan descended the stairs slowly, Max matching his pace step for step. Mom said you're going to help us so we don't have to run anymore. That's right, Catherine confirmed, kneeling to his level. No more running, no more hiding. What about Dad? Ethan asked, his voice small but steady. Is he going to jail? The adults exchanged glances, uncertain how to respond to such a direct question from a child. Your father has broken some very serious laws, Catherine finally said. And yes, he will likely go to jail for those choices, but that's not your fault, Ethan. None of this is your fault. Ethan nodded, absorbing this information with the same resilience he'd shown throughout his ordeal. Max pressed against his side, offering silent support. Is that your dog? Catherine asked, clearly trying to lighten the moment. No, Ethan replied. He's Sarah and Michael's dog, but he took care of me when I was alone, and now I think he's taking care of all of us. As if to confirm this assessment, Max's ears suddenly perked up, his body tensing. A low growl emanated from his throat as he turned toward the front window. Bryant was the first to react, drawing his weapon and moving toward the door. Stay back, he ordered the others. But before he could reach the entrance, the door burst open with a splintering crack. Robert Mercer stood in the doorway, his expensive suit incongruous with the wild look in his eyes and the gun in his hand. How touching, he sneered, his gaze sweeping over the assembled group before fixing on Lisa and Ethan. A family reunion, and you even invited my dear sister. Robert, Catherine said, her voice calm despite the gun pointed in their direction. Put the weapon down. This isn't going to end the way you think. Oh, I think it will, Robert countered. My wife and son are coming with me. Now, we're going to be a family again, whether they like it or not. Bryant had his own weapon trained on Robert, but the standoff was precarious. Too many civilians in too small a space. Your wife? Lisa scoffed, finding courage she didn't know she possessed. I stopped being your wife the first time you put me in the hospital. And Ethan stopped being your son the first time he saw you hit me. You turned him against me, Robert snarled, taking a step forward. Fed him lies. I never had to lie, Lisa replied steadily. Your actions spoke for themselves. Robert's face contorted with rage. Enough. You're coming with me now, or I swear I'll... Whatever threat he intended to make was cut short by a blur of black and tan fur. Max, seeing the danger to his newfound family, launched himself at Robert with the precision and courage that had made German Shepherds legendary protectors. His powerful jaws clamped around Robert's gun arm, the force of his lunge knocking the man backward through the open doorway. The gun discharged once, harmlessly into the ceiling before clattering to the porch as Robert and Max tumbled down the front steps together. Bryant was moving instantly, rushing outside to secure the weapon and restrain Robert, who was screaming in pain and fury as Max held him pinned to the ground. Call the dog off, Robert shouted. Call him off. Bryant handcuffed Robert before whistling to Max. Good boy, he said. You can let go now. Max released his grip on Robert's arm but remained alert, positioning himself between the restrained man and the house where Ethan and the others stood watching from the doorway. As Bryant led a cursing Robert to his patrol car, Catherine approached her brother. You never did know when to stop, she said quietly. Even as children, you pushed until something broke. But this time, Robert, the thing that's broken is your freedom. And I'm going to make sure it stays that way. In the aftermath, as paramedics treated Robert's arm before he was transported to the county jail, the Walters living room became an impromptu command center. Catherine made calls to federal prosecutors, Bryant processed the arrest, and Lisa began the lengthy process of giving her official statement. Amidst the flurry of activity, Sarah found Ethan sitting on the back porch steps, his arm around Max's neck. You okay? She asked, sitting beside him. Ethan nodded slowly. I think so. Is it really over? The running? Yes, Sarah confirmed. Your mom is incredibly brave, and with your Aunt Catherine's help, your father won't be able to hurt either of you again. Because of Max, Ethan said, burying his face in the dog's fur. He saved us. Sarah smiled, reaching out to stroke Max's head. He did. Seems like that's becoming a habit of his. Max looked between them, his intelligent brown eyes somehow conveying both pride and contentment. He had found his true purpose, not just as a pet, but as a protector, a guardian, a link in a chain of events that had brought healing to more lives than anyone could have imagined. Later that evening, as the official business wound down and a tentative calm settled over the household, Lisa found Sarah in the kitchen. Catherine says we'll need to stay in town for a while, she said, for the legal proceedings. You're welcome to stay here as long as you need, Sarah offered immediately. Lisa shook her head, though her smile was grateful. We've imposed enough, but Catherine mentioned there's a small rental property available near her office, close enough for Ethan to visit Max regularly. Visit? Sarah repeated, an idea forming. What if he didn't have to visit? What if Max could stay with you and Ethan? What? No, we couldn't possibly. Max and Ethan have a special bond, Sarah continued. Anyone can see that. And while we love Max dearly, I think he's made his choice clear. As if summoned by their conversation, Max padded into the kitchen, followed closely by Ethan and Emma, who were deep in discussion about a board game they'd been playing. Sarah and Lisa watched as Max moved naturally to Ethan's side, the way he had since they first found him at the farmhouse. Some connections, Sarah reflected, were simply meant to be, forged in moments of need, strengthened through shared adversity, and destined to heal wounds both seen and unseen. In the end, what had begun as a search for a missing dog had revealed something far more profound, the extraordinary capacity of love in all its forms to find us exactly when we need it most.